G'day, I'm Paul. So everyone today wants to save a little bit of money, and you have to spend money to save money when it comes to hybrid SUVs. Hyundai has just launched the Santa Fe hybrid in Australia. This one here is the top spec called the Highlander. It's priced at just under $70,000. If that's too expensive, the entire hybrid range is a little over 60 grand. And it's $3,000 more than the equivalent non-hybrid version. This competes with things like the Toyota Kluger, which is available in a hybrid, the Kia Sorento, which is available in a hybrid, and also the Mitsubishi Outlander plug-in hybrid. That is kind of a more advanced hybrid compared to this. Today we're going to do a detailed review of this car, so if you do want to skip ahead to other parts of this review, you can use the time codes on the screen, or if you're on YouTube, you can scroll down and use the chapters below, and if you haven't done so already, subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon so you can find out every single time I try and save you some money. So let's talk exterior design. You've got 7 colors to pick from. All but white and blue are going to set you back just under $700. This particular spec is only available in 7 colors. Look, the Santa Fe, this is due for a facelift pretty soon, and it is starting to show its age. I think the facelift that they did on it wasn't really overly comprehensive, and if you sit this next to the Sorento, which this shares a platform with, they do look very different there, and I think the Sorento looks a little more modern than this, but a lot of people still like this design. So you've got a big grille there with that waterfall design, Hyundai logo there in chrome, and then more brushed aluminium as you work your way down with radar sensor built into the bottom there. Over on the headlights, you have a set of full LED headlights with an LED daytime running light as well. If you whip around to the side, so you got yourself a set of 19-inch alloy wheels, machine finish on the outside there with like a graphite finish on the inside. Decent bit of profile on that rubber as well, which should mean that this actually rides well. Hyundai used to do a lot of ride and handling tuning in Australia, and they don't really do any of that anymore, so it'll be interesting to see how this feels, because I know the previous sort of iterations of Santa Fe did have local ride and handling tuning, and I assume that they've followed this on here with the Santa Fe. No wheel arch cladding, so it's body coloured there. Up the top here, you have a body coloured wing mirror with an indicator built into there. Camera there for the 360 camera. More of that brushed aluminium down the side there and around the doors as well. Roof rails, big panoramic glass roof. You've got privacy glass, and then let's come around to the back. Now, sorry, I'm going to be doing a lot of swatting during this review because there are flies everywhere. You see, you've got LED tail lights. The actual indicator isn't up here. It's located down here. So sometimes when you're following these, it is a little bit tricky to see that. On the back here, H-Track, which is all-wheel drive hybrid, which is the powertrain, obviously, and then Santa Fe Highlander there as well. Shark fin aerial up the top too. So let me know what you reckon about the design. Do you think this is starting to get dated, or do you think the Santa Fe still looks good? And do you reckon the Sorento looks better than the Santa Fe? Let me know in the comments section below. So we're inside the Santa Fe. We'll start off with the key. This is what it looks like. You have lock, unlock, boot. You have the remote parking feature, and then remote start as well. Hyundai logo on the back. This is a proximity sensing key, so you can leave that in your pocket. Then you have a push button start just over here. Now, what do we reckon about this interior? Look, I've mentioned before that I'm not really a fan of the button explosion here in the center, because there is a button for everything. I think that people that like that sort of stuff will probably like the fact that you have a button for everything, but to me it just looks a little bit busy, but you know, it is what it is. They make up for it though with the rest of this interior, and I think it actually looks really nice. You've got this sort of offset leather color along the dashboard. Everything is soft touch and it feels premium. That is the whole purpose of having soft touch stuff. It feels like you're getting value for money there. So yeah, on touch points, pretty firm in the center there, kind of firm on the door. How soft is it? We've got our durometer. We've tested the main surfaces in this cabin. If you want to see how this car compares to others that we've tested before, have a look at the link in the description below. Now, what about build quality? A bit wonky there in the center. Feels okay though. Door test. Sounds nice and premium. So let's talk infotainment. You have a 10.25-inch display up the top here. It is a color touchscreen, really nice and sharp, and yeah, nice and quick there as well as it randomly goes to CarPlay. Yeah, nice and sharp and quick. Very impressed with that. So on the radio front, you have AM, FM and DAB digital radio. You've also got a 10-speaker Harman Kardon branded sound system. It's actually a pretty good sound system for a family SUV as well. In terms of smartphone mirroring, you have both Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, but keep in mind Apple CarPlay and Android Auto are both wired. But the quality of them is excellent. Have a look at that. It is so nice and sharp. Very impressive with that. And this is what Android Auto looks like. There you go. So full screen, it does look like it's split, but if you go back to the home screen, it moves maps over to that side. Again, nice and fast as well, so no dramas there at all. In terms of the other cool features of the infotainment system, you've got passenger talk. So if you hit that, it actually picks up your voice with the microphones here and projects it over to the back of the car, so it's easier to talk to people. You also have quiet mode as well, which only plays audio at the front if your kids are asleep and not annoying you. Ahead of the driver, you have a 12.3-inch display. That's all pretty straightforward. It does change a little bit depending on which drive mode you're in. So it will sort of adjust the display there. So nice little setup, and then all your key information is in the center as well. Now, what about your safety? You have autonomous emergency braking. It detects pedestrians, cyclists, giraffes, you name it, it can do it. Maybe not giraffes, but anyway. So this also has a junction assistant too. So if you do try and turn across traffic that's coming towards you, it will slam the brakes on, which is good. You've got an auto dimming rear vision mirror. You have a blind spot monitor built into the wing mirror. You also have these really cool blind spot cameras, and I'll run you through those when we go for an actual drive. They show up on the display when you change indicators, so I'll show you what they look like when we go for a spin. In addition to that, you have rear cross traffic alert, you have a lane departure warning and a lane keeping assistant with radar cruise control. We're going to demo this later on to see how well it works as well. On the parking front, 360 camera with front and rear parking sensors. I'll show you what the camera looks like. The quality of that's actually really good there for the reverse view. 360 is a bit blurry and funny, but that looks great. I can actually see perfectly what's on the suitcase there. You've got a trailer connection view, and then you've also got views down the back sides of the car. So that is not too bad at all. Very impressive, Hyundai. Lastly, horn test. Sounds very expensive. Now let's talk about your practicality, and we'll start off with connectivity. So in here you have a USB-A port, that is for your smartphone mirroring. Down the bottom here you have another USB-A port and a 12 volts outlet. You've also got wireless phone charging as well, and it's quite interesting. There's like a little flap there that you drop your phone into, and then it sits there, which I think is a pretty cool setup. Your phone can also then live in a couple of spots here, but I just don't think the storage is very good. You've got that slot for your phone, but because it has a little trap door, you can kind of lose things in there. Yeah, it's just a poor use of space, I reckon, especially with the button explosion. If they had to move that up there, you'd have a bit more room here to store things. But now, what about your coffee? So coffee kind of fits okay in there. It's got teeth in there to hold it in place as well. So for your bottle, that's going to work fine. Bottle fits inside the door for the small one. Let's try this big one. I don't think that's going to fit. No bingo on the big bottle. Other storage, you have decent sized center console here with a coin tray as well. And then you also have a glove box over here that is very reasonably sized. Little storage tray there, and then this storage nook down the bottom as well. So what about your comfort? You have dual zone automatic climate control up the front here. You have heated and cooled seats. You've also got a heated steering wheel, just in case your fingers get cold. Electric seat adjustment for the driver and front passenger, so you can go forwards, backwards. Backrest can go forwards, backwards. You can lift the front of the seat, the back of the seat. You also have lumbar adjustment as well, and seat memory too for the driver. And just on seat comfort as well, quite comfortable and perforated too. So in addition to that seat cooling, they keep you nice and cool on a hot summer's day. On the steering front, you have both tilt and reach adjustment. On the reach test, this stuff's okay, but because the home button is in the top corner, you really have to get right in there to reach that while you're driving. I think that could be just a little bit better done. Okay, second row. This is a very fancy one because it has 6 seats, 2, 4, and 2 in the back, and you've got this center pass-through. I actually like this configuration because if you don't necessarily need to be carting around, every kid and their dog, it's actually a really great way to get the kids in because they can hop in, climb through the middle there. You don't need to faff around with moving seats. And if you do have a baby seat in here, it means it is easy to get into the back too. So yeah, keep that in mind. In terms of actual room here, the room's okay. Tow room's pretty cramped. Headroom is pretty reasonable. This chair actually moves forwards and backwards to give yourself more room in the third row if you do need it. You also have these adjustable armrests as well, which I think is a pretty handy feature. Other creature comforts, you've got a window shade just there. You've got mat pockets in the back of the seats. You have the ability to move the passenger seats. You can go forwards, backwards. Backrest can go forwards, backwards. You have 2 USB-A ports down here, 2 cup holders here. Fit your, whoops. First day on the job. Fit your bottle in there without too many dramas, and then you can fit it inside the door too. You have seat heating for these 2 outboard seats. You've got 2 ISOFIX points on these 2 outboard seats with 2 top tethers, but you can't have baby seats in your third row. And then our window test. Have a little sticky beak. Oh, good on you, Hyundai. And then auto up and down as well. Nice. So, third row. I'm going to show you how this seat mechanism works, but then I will use the walkthrough because, watch this, when you do roll this forward, there really isn't a great deal of room to fit through here. So, I'm going to stick that all the way back, and then I'll jump into the back so we can see what it's like. Alrighty. Actually, even as a pass through, this is kind of hard to do. I think I may have just dislocated my leg. Okay, so there isn't actually any room here at all for adults. Sean, can you move that seat forward for me? Let's actually see how this goes. Okay, so if we do that, I actually then have some room here. How much room is there down there, Sean? Yeah, literally no room. So obviously this space is going to be just for kids. You're not going to fit adults back here. And if you do, you're going to have someone very uncomfortable in the second row there. But you do have your own blower controls back here. You also have a USB port and cup holders as well. So I guess from that point of view, it is a usable space. By the way, this is also where they fit the ultrasonic sensors as well that detect whether you've left kids in the car and gotten out of it. So yeah, there you go. Third row of the Santa Fe. So let's chat cargo space. Got a powered tailgate. I'll whip this guy open. Okay, so behind here you have 130 litres of space, so not a huge amount of room. Beneath here as well you have Jack hiding under there, and then not much else. You've got a battery under there. In terms of storing your things, you can see here that you're probably not going to be able to fit much in there. Even the laptop probably won't fit in there, but you can expand that space. And the good news is if you do have one kid in there, you can always just drop half of the row there, so you do have a little bit more room. And then if you drop the entire third row there, it opens up the space there to a little under 600 litres. You've got a 12 volt outlet off to the side. Show you what it looks like with the bags in there. There you go, no dramas there at all. Now you can drop the second row as well, and you've got buttons for that just over here. You give those a little push, bang, away they go. You do have that little gap in the center there, but it creates almost a flat floor that expands the space to just under 1,700 litres. Okay, so we've just hit the road in the Santa Fe Hybrid. Right, now it is a little bit complicated, but I'll try and explain it as best I can, and hopefully it makes a little more sense after that. So powering this is an internal combustion engine, but it also uses a small electric motor. The internal combustion engine is a 1.6 litre turbocharged 4-cylinder petrol engine. So if you do keep in mind the rest of the Santa Fe range, you only get a petrol V6 and also a diesel 4-cylinder. So this is unique to that hybrid combination. The petrol engine alone makes 132 kilowatts of power and 265 Newton meters of torque. And then that's mated to an electric motor that makes around 40 kilowatts of power and about 250 Newton meters of torque. Now, this is the confusing bit. When they combine, it gives you a combined output of 169 kilowatts of power and 350 Newton meters of torque. Now, why does that happen? So it happens because when we talk about power and torque in a car, we're talking about the peak power and torque. And if you look at something like a rev band or a torque band, it's going to have a peak at a certain point in time or across a certain set of revs. With an internal combustion engine, generally that's going to be later in the rev band, especially if it's a turbocharged car. It's going to be across a longer distance later in the rev band. That's in comparison to an electric motor, because an electric motor makes all of its torque from 0 RPM. And then it tapers off after that as the speed increases. So when we talk about the peak power and torque with those combined, it's at the point where it is at its highest. And in this case, it's around that 169 kilowatts of power mark. The thing that I'll mention here is it's all mated to a 6-speed automatic transmission, and it's not terrible, but it's not the way that Toyota does it. And the reason Toyota uses a CVT with its hybrid cars is because when you take off, like I'm about to do now, it's smooth. There's no interruption. Right now, I can feel each gear shift, and while it is smooth, it is noticeable. You hear the engine note change as well, whereas with the Toyota, it's basically just everything is happening nice and smoothly. You don't get any of that noise pollution inside the cabin. The other, I guess, downside to this as well is Hyundai claims a combined fuel economy of 6 litres per 100 Ks. We're currently sitting on 7.2 litres per 100 Ks on the combined cycle. Now, the reason I say that's a slight issue is because the official fuel consumption of the Santa Fe diesel is actually 6.1 litres per 100 K. So it's 0.1 of a litre more than the hybrid, which is barely going to really affect things in the long run. It'll mean your payback period is virtually infinite. And then in addition to that as well, you have to pay $3,000 extra for the hybrid too. So yeah, that is one thing to consider. If you're dead set against diesel, obviously this gives you reasonably good fuel economy, but the diesel is very efficient in the Santa Fe, and the $3,000 difference may not be worth spending. It's worth calling out here as well that you can see on that little indicator just there on the dashboard that the battery, 1.5 kilowatt hours, it basically is charged every time I slow down. So when I put my foot on the brake, it goes into that charge cycle and starts filling the battery. And then you can see when it is running on electric alone. And right now it's on electric. I just roll onto the throttle. It'll stay in electric predominantly, and then it will kick over the internal combustion engine to feed more energy into the system. Okay, 130 Ks an hour. Let's crank it up to that. That is for our sine wave. 130 Ks an hour, not only the maximum speed limit in Australia across a number of states, but also the speed you might hit when you're overtaking. And it's a good indication of what body control is like in our sine waves. Wow, it is pretty bouncy. So yeah, the other downside to the hybrid package is that you're adding a lot of weight to add an electric motor, battery, etc. So as a result of that, when you do hit those consecutive undulations, you really get it sitting high for a little while there. So it's not the worst I've ever tested here, but it probably does need a little bit of work just to settle it. You're going to find that type of road condition so many places around country Australia, and if you are overtaking and you hit one of those, you want to be holding on for dear life. Okay, our new test here. This back into smart mode. We'll get up to 90 Ks an hour. This is an example of a terrible country road. It's full of potholes, and we have a very close sine wave here as well that'll really test the suspension. So it's not too bad. It is floating over that a little bit. Tend to find that happens in cars that are softer sprung because the wheels don't have a chance to get back in contact with the road, and then it tends to just float over those consecutive corrugations. But even on this choppier section here, it actually is doing a really good job of keeping the ride nice and comfortable here inside the cabin. Okay, drive modes. You've got Eco, Sport and Smart, along with some off-road modes. Let's pop this into Sport. You see the dashboard change. See what it's like on a lap of our circuit here. All right, brakes feel good. Steering becomes heavier. We'll roll onto the throttle. It's actually not too bad. So this is all-wheel drive, and it's actually doing a good job of sending torque to the rear as required, but the gearbox is just doing what it does in a standard automatic car, where it's just diving back through the gears instead of holding a gear there. I can actually change gears manually using the paddle shifters if I want to. Look, it is actually doing a pretty good job. The thing I like about Santa Fe and Sorento as well is dynamically they're actually not too bad. This does have a fairly soft ride like we noticed there on the sine waves, but when you get stuck into it, it's actually not the worst thing in the world. Pretty happy with that. Let's roll onto the back straight here. See what it's like as speed picks up a bit. Actually don't mind the steering feel as well. You can really have a bit of fun with this. There it goes again, diving back through a gear. Roll onto the back straight here. Well, it runs out of puff there, especially when you get into that situation there where the battery is almost empty as well. So look, it's okay. Not the best in the world and not the worst. So let's talk road noise. It's actually pretty quiet in here. I was expecting there to be a whole lot more road noise, but it's really not that bad at all. In terms of visibility, I can see clearly down the front of the car there. The wing mirrors are nice and big. I've got blind spot monitors built into those. Visibility out the back is pretty good as well. Just keep in mind that if you do have that third row up, it's going to eat into your visibility, but really isn't the end of the world. This is the stuff I was talking about before with the cameras that activate when you have the indicators on. Love this feature. It's just a really handy addition to a standard blind spot monitor as well. Now, if you are going to be doing any towing, this has a brake towing capacity of 1,600 kilos. That's down on the diesel, so it is worth keeping in mind. If you do want to do any towing, the diesel is going to be the better option. Okay, so we're on our circular track, the banked oval. This is where we're going to do some testing of our lane departure, lane keeping system. So I'm going to set the cruise control here at 70 kilometers an hour. So 70 k's an hour is the speed we test all the cars at here. I'm going to switch on the lane support system as well. There it is there, so you'll see it pop up. There we go, so you see it there pop up. So the steering wheel indicates that the car is doing steering for us, and the green lanes indicate that it's noticing the lanes here. We're going to progressively move our way up to the furthest banked lane. The purpose of this test isn't to see what the car's like on a banked oval. It's actually just to see how much torque it's willing to apply to the wheel, because that is a direct correlation to what happens out on the normal road when it approaches a corner. So here in this lane, it's doing a good job of centering us. We're not getting close to that line at all, so I'm pretty happy with that. We'll jump over to the next lane, see what this is like. Okay, wait for it to detect the lanes and for the steering to go green. There it is. So I'm going to gradually let go of the wheel there, and we'll see what happens. Okay, it's getting close to the line, but it is holding us in there. It's moving back towards the centre now as well. It's actually pretty good. It's doing a good job there. So, yep, tick for lane 1 and 2. Let's jump up to lane 3 and see what it's like up here. All right, that's nicely banked. All right, steering is flashing. We'll just wait for the lanes to detect. It's having no success here. It's not detecting anything. So, unfortunately, it's a pass for lane 1 and 2 and a fail for lane 3. Yep, it's not going to work. So, yep, fail for lane 3, but pass for lane 1 and 2. So it'll do most of the things you need it to do on the road. It just won't do any sort of harder turns. Okay, let's talk 0 to 100. Hyundai doesn't have an official 0 to 100 time, but we'll see how it goes. I've put it into sport mode. I've switched off traction control. Come up to our start line here. Now, I did notice as well before, I've got my foot flat on the throttle here, but nothing is happening when I've got it on the brake as well. So I'm just going to basically sidestep the brake with full throttle, and we'll see how it goes. Very modest. That's right, we'll go all the way through to 120 to get our 80 to 120 time as well. So here we go. Almost there. All right, come up to a stop. And let's see how quickly that all happened. Here we go. So 0 to 100, 8.43 seconds, and 80 to 120, 5.63 seconds. So look, all pretty reasonable numbers. I'm not disappointed, not sort of blown away. It's just, yeah, good, I think. Okay, and now 100 to 0. Let's get a little run up here, get it up to 100 k's an hour. And we'll drop the anchors, see how it performs. There's about 100 there. It felt really good. Okay, let's have a little sticky bag here. So 100 to 0, 2.55 seconds, 35.39 meters. Now the reason I'm laughing a little bit is because we're also testing the Cayenne Turbo GT today, which has enormous carbon ceramic brakes, and it took longer to stop than the Santa Fe hybrid. So read into that as you will. If you do want to see how this compared to other cars that we've tested before, have a look at the link in the description below where you can find the rest of those results. Let's wrap things up with our reverse acceleration test. Make sure traction control is off just in case, and let's see how we go. Okay, so we've capped out there at 47 kilometers an hour. So the Santa Fe Hybrid, look, for the $3,000 you have to spend on this above the rest of the Santa Fe range, I just don't see the appeal to it. I'd much prefer to just get the diesel. It's about as efficient. You're going to be able to tow more. It feels a little punchier. It's more a resolved vehicle. If, on the other hand, there is a huge wait for the diesel and you really just want to get into one, then this is going to answer all the questions that you have. It is pretty efficient. It has more than enough punch. It doesn't feel like the Kia Sorento plug-in hybrid, which is really down on torque and just doesn't feel right. This, on the other hand, fills that gap. It has enough punch to get you up and moving, and it is pretty efficient. But if I had to buy this or the diesel, I'd probably just be going down the path of the diesel. So let me know in the comments section below, have you bought one of these? Why did you get it over the diesel? I'm really curious to find out. Perhaps it's a rebate thing. Let me know your thoughts. If you did enjoy this video, please make sure you like it and you share it with your mates. And if you haven't done so already, subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon. But until next time, take it easy.